behind the scenes with future country rock blues kings and queens. Discover them first with Palm Mash TV. Palm Mash TV.
There, it's Palm Mash TV time again. Thank you so much for joining us. Another great interview is coming up shortly. But before we begin, if you haven't yet, click that subscribe button and bell buttons below you there, and you're always going to be notified of any new episodes coming your way. And if you'd like to leave a comment on the comment section below, go ahead and do that. We'd love to hear from you there. And if you pay attention to the description part as well as the closing credits at the end of the show, you're going to find contact info for you. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. From Stillwater, Oklahoma today, we have Hugh Foley, another awesome artist, and I think you're going to agree. And we're going to get to that in 1 second, but first there's a quick word from the Caden Gordon Show. So don't go away, we'll be right back right after this.
It is Caden from the Caden Gordon Show, today's best country mix. Check out my show at thecadengordonshow.com.
Okay, we're back, and with us from Stillwater, Oklahoma, we have Hugh Foley with us today. Thanks for joining us, Hugh.
Happy to be here, Paul. Nice to see you.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to have you. Well, what's your story about as far as you being an artist? I mean, I guess you grew up in a musical family. Maybe you just wanted to try it later on in life. I mean, tell everybody your story. We'd love to hear it.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share. I did grow up in a musical family. So my grandfather was a professional musician. And then my father was a drummer, and my mother was a viola player. And then somewhere in my teen years, I started playing in the band, a trombone, which I still play some today. And then very soon thereafter, I got involved in radio, and I became a disc jockey when I was 16. And I have remained a disc jockey my entire life. So currently, I program a radio station in Cushing, Oklahoma, known as the Cush, or KUSH, and we're an Americana music reporter, and we're also a Texas music reporter. So in that span of time, which is almost 50 years now of radio, I've worked with a ton of artists in all capacities, whether it's interviewing people like you're doing right now, or doing live sound, or getting those artists on the air and listening to multiple releases and deciding what's appropriate for our listeners. So I've been doing that the whole time. And in the 90s, I had a musician friend who lived near me, and he started showing me some things on the guitar. And I always loved guitar, and I was a fan of people who played guitar and songwriters that had depth to their songs that could play guitar. And I didn't realize that once you learned a few chords, you could essentially do a million different songs. Mm-hmm. And also, one of my really major bedrock influences is Woody Guthrie. And so with Woody Guthrie, he would take 2 or 3 chords, put a story with it, and kind of talk that story. And that was inspirational to me too, that you could just play a few chords and tell a story, and you didn't have to have the best singing voice. And of course, that led me to Bob Dylan and all that he has done over the years to be one of our great writers. And I have a creative writing background through my college experience and then other writing opportunities. And so what started to happen was I merged with my creative poetic sensibility with my understanding of how to play the guitar a little bit, and then how to put songs together. And not to be too technical, because some people may be watching this that are not musicians or understanding how it all works, but once you get a few foundational principles under your belt, you can take off. So there in the 90s, that's what I started to do, was learned how to write songs, just 3-chord songs, really not even different chords on the choruses. And that happens a lot. And in even contemporary music, the same chords roll around. And I have a band, and we started playing shows and working together every week. And I did that up until COVID. And then COVID, once we were all isolated, I started to take some online guitar lessons to try and get better. I might as well do something. And I wasn't really satisfied, although I did the program. And so as soon as it was safe, I came out and found a guitar teacher. And so I've been taking lessons now for a few years, and that's really made a difference in my whole understanding of the guitar. And you can still stay within a very simple realm and still do a lot of extra things that sound more ornamental than playing the simple 2 or 3 chords. You can still play those same 2 or 3 chords, but then you add stuff. And I didn't really know how to do that before. So my guitar playing has improved. And alongside that, my songwriting improved. So after the pandemic, I decided to go out and instead of playing with a band, play by myself. And so I went to open mics and songwriter nights and that kind of thing. And through that, started to get gigs. And so I started to play out by myself places. And subsequent to that, I started to get good feedback from people about my particular style and how I deliver songs and choose songs that are appropriate for my voice and guitar abilities. And then over the last couple of years, I built a body of songs that are all new songs. And so this summer, I went into the studio really to just knock the songs out. I was not interested in a major production. I really just wanted to get the songs down so that I'd have a document of them and that I could share them with people who might want to book me. And additionally, show those to the band and they could decide, well, okay, we want to do this one, but we don't want to do that one. And also just to archive the songs. So here's what I did. And so I went in one morning to Tea Garden Studios, and Tea Garden is here in Tulsa. Or no, I'm not in Tulsa now, I'm in Claremore, which is where I work. This is my university office I'm in now. So I'm a university college professor and department head at Rogers State University in Claremore, which is right across the street from the Will Rogers Home and Memorial. So it's all connected to that sensibility here in Oklahoma. And so I went into the studio, and in 3 hours, I recorded just my basic tracks, my guitar and vocals. And I practiced them so much, they were more or less 2 or 3 takes each, and I got what I wanted out of it. I wanted something live. And then I had my guitar teacher, Vic Denny, come in the afternoon and put some leads down so it wouldn't just be me and the guitar, but there'd be a little more texture to the music. So we did that, and then it took about a month to get the masters back, or mixes and masters, and get everything situated, and then put it out. So I wasn't too precious about it. I really made it to be a roots music album, very much in the folk realm and the country realm. Originally, of course, was acoustic instruments. And so we got that out, and then I've had some good feedback from that. So we've gotten some airplay around the country and in Europe. And so that's been a really fun thing. And that's where I am. I've done, since the pandemic, I've done about 200 performances that I've logged. And so that's all been an attempt to get better. And so that's really where I am as a musician, is sort of a nerdy folk singer with country underpinnings. And I use my voice, which has a lot of depth to it, to pick songs that resonate with people that are covers, so that I can do really well-known songs and then follow that up with one of my own, and then go back to the well-known ones and then play one of my own if it's like a restaurant gig or a pub gig or something like that. Or I've also done solo sets where I come out and just do 45 minutes of my own stuff with maybe 1 or 2 covers thrown in there. So really, Paul, that's where I am now. Is I'm happy being a solo singer-songwriter musician, sharing my stories and songs, and enjoying that opportunity at this stage in my life. As we get older, we need things to do to keep us engaged socially, creatively, mentally, and so all of this does that for me. So there's a good long answer to your first question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I enjoyed that story too. I'm glad that you're still doing what you're doing, and I hope you'll have many years left in you.
Thank you.
My second question was actually influences. What influences you had? But I know you mentioned Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan, I think, as a couple of them. Did you have any others? Mm-hmm.
Sure. I always start with Woody Guthrie because of the 2 and 3 chord song progressions of folk music, and then the ability to tell a story without having a tremendous singing voice. And same with Dylan, who also is obviously one of our great creative writers, period. But adding that to what often are not the most complicated chord progressions because he also came out of the folk tradition. So I would say those two are primary influences for me. But outside of that, it's the deep voice singers. And so I sing a lot alongside some vintage recordings. People often mention Johnny Cash to me. They also mention someone like Lou Reed, who's kind of a talky, deep voice guy. I've also had people mention Ernest Tubb and what he did with his voice, and going back and listening to him at the end of phrases, he would often drop down. I'm walking the floor over you, you know, that kind of thing. And then also somebody like Tennessee Ernie Ford, who has real deep voice and 16 tons and that kind of thing. Any song that has kind of a storytelling quality. So Jim Croce, I'm a big fan of him, and sort of the bad Leroy Brown kind of vibe and being able to tell a story. And then I would also say the harder core country, telling difficult stories, but the music sometimes belies that sensibility. So someone like Roger Miller, who would have dark lyrics but up-tempo, happy music, and or someone like Merle Haggard and the stories he would tell. So that's really on the country music and songwriting and folk stuff. That's really where that is. On the guitar side, you know, I'll don't ever expect to reach the greatness of great guitarists because I started too late in life, I think. And but I really appreciate Barney Kessel, who's the great jazz guitarist, and the Oklahoma jazz guitar tradition. So Charlie Christian, Barney Kessel, that whole realm, the people who came out of Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys, and just the use of to be kind of musical, the pentatonic scale and the blues scale, and using that to accent the music. So I would say that. And horn wise, like Chet Baker is one of my, even though he's a trumpet player, not a trombone player, really his whole sensibility and how he played trumpet, just very slow and lyrical. And so I like that. And I think that influences my guitar solos that I do infrequently, but sometimes. And so I would say that those are my influences. I would also say the Tin Pan Alley tradition of the American Songbook. And I know that kind of dates me and ages me, but the songs that came out of the 1920s and 30s and 40s and how they're written and the sensibility that they have, I like those. And then contemporarily, you know, someone like Hayes Carll, to me, is just a bellwether artist for how I like to write songs and play and sing and perform, because he's a very storytelling oriented person. And then there's a lot of others in the Americana realm that I really admire and appreciate. But I would say of contemporary artists, Hayes Carll would definitely be right up there at the top of the list. Someone like Rodney Crowell. And then a lot of our Oklahoma artists who are very deep songwriters, whether it's a John Fulbright or John Moreland, you know, someone that Justin Bloss, some of these other songwriters that are coming out now, and then some of the other songwriters that are working their way up through the system that nobody really even knows about yet, that I see at songwriter nights or open mics. And so that influences me as well, just like what's going on the street right now. And I think it's important to get out there and see what's happening. It's not that you have to mention AI in your song to make it current, but you do at least want to represent the time in which you exist. And I try to do that as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a long list of influences, and I can see where you get a lot of that from in every little aspect there. Now, people may want to learn more about you. I guess you have an official website, or you're on social media, streaming media, so forth. Tell everybody how we can find you.
Yeah, I'd say right now it's all the social media. My website is developing, is what we'll say on that. So really the best place to find me is on either Facebook under my name, Hugh Foley. Same with TikTok. I have the name DocFo, DOCFO. And same with Instagram, DOCFO. And Dr. Foley, I have a PhD, and so I'm a college professor, and so that's sort of where that comes from. But then you just look at my name on the streaming services, whatever they are, YouTube, also, you know, iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is that you use to get your music. You can look my name up and you'll find my most recent album, and then also my album with my band called Slap Out, is the name of the band, and that's about 4 years old now. So those two are up. And so that's really the best way to find me, I'd say, is through the social media sites or the traditional music streaming sites.
Okay, well, check him out on social media and streaming media. Just type his name in, Hugh Foley, and I know you won't be disappointed. And we're getting ready to go to this video. It has an interesting title to it, Sugar-Coated Scorpions. I'm sure there's a story behind that, but give us a story about that.
The story is that a couple of years ago, I wanted to go to the state fair here in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find anybody to go with me. Everybody was either busy or they didn't really want to go to the fair. And so I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and go and just see what's up. And so I went alone and enjoyed my whole experience there because since I was by myself, I could do whatever I wanted to. Of course, the downside of being by yourself is you don't have anybody to share it with. So the upside is nobody's telling you what to do, and you can eat what you want, ride the rides you want, look at whatever exhibit you want for a while until you're ready to move on. And so after that was all over, I thought I needed a song for this. So I wrote the song Sugar-Coated Scorpion because I saw the sugar-coated scorpions for sale to eat at the fair. And that's where my threshold was met at that point. I was willing to try a few other things, but the sugar-coated scorpion, or what I later saw, the cricket pizza, that did not make it into the song. And so I wrote that song. So then this year I wound up playing the Oklahoma State Fair in Oklahoma City. And so once I got to the fair and played, I went with the idea that maybe I can make a video while I'm here. So I just took my phone and a monopod and I made a video that's essentially about someone going to the fair by themselves. So you see shots of me walking around by myself and then shots of things at the fair that illustrate what I'm talking about in the various lyrics of the song. And so that's where the video comes from, is this experience of the fair and then writing the song after that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great song. I think you guys are going to really love it. And we're going to get to that video in just a moment. But before we do, Hugh, thank you so much for being on the show today. We'd love to have you back again sometime if you want to plug anything new for us.
My pleasure, Paul. Appreciate it. And thanks to anybody who goes out and listens to my music, which is essentially singer-songwriter focused music with what I call kind of a nerdy approach. So just because of my background, I throw a lot of stuff in there that try not to be too inside jokey, but I do like to get people thinking.
All righty. Well, let's go right to the song Sugar-Coated Scorpion by Hugh Foley. It begins right now.
I like going to the fair by myself. I eat lots of things no good for my health. Nobody telling me how long I get to pause, looking at a dress made of paper straws. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had, if you ask me to go and I say no, not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. I like going on my favorite rides alone. Or when they're over, I can jump right back on. Himalayan air cool on my face. Carousel swings fling me around over multicolored midway space. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had, if you ask me to go and I say no, not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. I made friends with a blue ribbon sheep and a carny who could see I needed some sleep. had a pickle pop and some deep fried bubble gum. Ate a donut burger, didn't drop a crumb. But I had to draw the line at a sugar-coated scorpion. Sometimes solitaire is not so bad. After all the sour hours you've already had. If you ask me to go and I say no, it's not 'cause I'm being rude. Lonely's not the same as solitude. Lonely's not the same as solitude.